Mm. Good morning, everybody. 7th Congressional District Representative Tom Tiffany is here for another episode of Breakfast with Tiffany. Today, Thursday, July 8th, 2021. Also joining us today is my very special co-host, friend of the show, current real estate mogul? Agent?
Yeah.
With Real Estate Solutions and former 75th Assembly District Representative Romaine Quinn. Romaine will be providing some color commentary and hopefully asking some intelligent questions, which will be kind of a nice change of pace for our show. A quick programming note, 1 week from today, Adam Jarko and Patty Schochner will be back and joining me for another Politically Speaking with Adam and Patty show. Then 2 weeks from today, former Lieutenant Governor Rebecca Clayfish just got that confirmed this morning that she is joining me for her third time appearing on our show. And then finally, July 29th, 3 weeks from today, the senator from the 25th District and current Senate Minority Leader Janet Bewley will be back on for a chat to wrap up our Thursday political shows for July. But today is Breakfast with Tiffany featuring Congressman Tom Tiffany. Tom, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Glad to join you. I'm counting on your person doing color commentary to be better than Chris Collinsworth.
Oh, what? See, why does everybody rip on him? I like him.
He's okay.
Yeah,
he's
he's
okay.
all right.
Al Michaels can make anybody look good. Al Michaels is the best.
Yeah. Yeah, is he still doing that? Actually, I don't even know.
He is.
Oh, cheapers. Yeah, everybody rips on, like, who's the other one? Joe Buck. I like Joe Buck. Why does everybody hate on him? He and Chris Collinsworth, everybody does, but I think they're
You're
great.
also wearing a Chicago shirt, so
Chicago Bears shirt. It's our year this year. Yeah.
see how you like them.
We're going to have a start. By the way, we're going to have a starting quarterback for the Bears that has never once lost a game, has never thrown an incomplete pass, never even thrown an interception in his NFL career. So, I mean, he's a rookie and he hasn't played in the NFL, but still, those are good stats.
Well, we're just waiting for the first minute of the first quarter of the first game, right, Romaine?
Yep.
All righty. So, Tom, how have you been? It's been a month since you were on last. What's new with you?
Oh boy, lots of stuff going on. The final 3 weeks of June, I was out in Washington D.C. We were holding hearings in Judiciary and Natural Resources. Lots of stuff going on. Made a trip down to Texas, joined President Trump and Governor Abbott down at the border. It is completely out of control. It's not getting any better down there. So made some trips down there, and then actually was able to have a little fun over the 4th of July weekend. Did some parades. I actually enjoy parades. And it was a great time doing them, and got out with a family. We canoed the Tomahawk River last Friday, and we had a great time.
What's the point of canoeing?
What's that?
What's the point of canoeing?
Oh,
No, I'm serious. Like, why does anybody do that?
He should have prefaced his question with Ben pretty much hates nature,
Yeah.
so he does not understand why you would spend time in it. But
Yeah, and if you're going to be in a boat, just have a motor in it. Then you don't have to do any work, and you still get the scenery. And but I'm glad you had a nice time. And I want to talk to you.
we use the current. It moves us downstream, Ben. And we jumped in the water a couple times, went swimming. It was a blast. We had a bunch, including my family. A couple of my daughters were home, and it was a good time.
Good. I want to get to, you brought up Texas. I want to get to that in a minute, but I'd be remiss not to bring something up before we even get going here, because it happened right after you were on last. So this was a few weeks old now, kind of old news, but I just wanted your take on this. It was the Juneteenth holiday, or that legislation, and you had voted no, and that made a lot of news in Wisconsin. A lot of editorials. I mean, if you Google your name, which I did this morning, I do every morning before you come on, and just click news, like that's the stories that it was still about that. So walk us through, what was your thought process on voting no on that?
Yeah, so that bill was dumped on us at the last minute. Once again, this has happened so frequently with Nancy Pelosi, and the bill was just dumped on us to do a quick vote, no committee hearings, no chance to offer amendments, because I would have offered amendments for that bill to be able to vote for it if I could have. But if you look at the subtitle of the bill, it says National Independence Day. And we have one Independence Day. It's July 4th. And this was meant to divide people by bringing this up. Now, I was one of only 14 people that voted against it, but I believe I did it for a good reason. There is only one Independence Day. Now, if they wanted to call that Emancipation Day, which is an amendment that I would have offered to the bill, then I certainly would have considered voting for it. But once again, it's Speaker Pelosi's effort just to divide people. And it's really unfortunate. And I'm just not going to vote for that stuff. I got to tell you, I have a family that has a proud history of standing up for the Union, standing against slavery. I have relatives, ancestors that fought in the Civil War on the side of the North. And I believe in that very firmly. Us Republicans, we were the original single issue party, and that was the abolition of slavery. And the party was started right here in Wisconsin as a result of that. And it is meant to hold our country together. Two things happened by President Lincoln and our party being in power during the Civil War era is we preserved the Union and we ended slavery.
So when you vote no on something like this, and obviously a lot of the news was a lot of editorials, a lot of opinion pieces and op-eds, without context, I mean, obviously you just vote no, and people can look at a roll call sheet and say, oh, you voted no, so I'm going to, I basically now have made my opinion up about Tom Tiffany and where he stands on like everything, or without knowing the reason as to why. Are you experiencing that more in Congress, or is this, man, I've done that when I was in the Senate and when I was a representative in the Assembly, or is it just amplified a little bit more in Congress where it's like, well, you didn't get to hear why I had voted no?
Yeah, I think it's higher profile when you're in Congress just because national issues are going to be more dominant. So people are going to hear about it more in that way. But these kind of votes have been going on, and I think Romaine can attest to that. From the time you come into a legislative body, you're taking tough votes, and you got to decide where you're going to stand. And this is very much a principal issue with me, as I stated in my comments earlier. And when it said National Independence Day in the bill, I immediately said that I cannot vote for this bill.
Sure.
In typical, Tom, I mean, those people that write opinions or editorials about you on that issue, did they bother to call you and ask for a quote or an explanation before they run these things? I'm guessing not.
Yeah, there was a couple that did, and we put out a statement in regards to it. I think the key thing that was missing from the comments that were put out by some editorial boards and some reporters is they did not inform the public that this bill was subheaded as National Independence Day. I think if they would have told the public about that, I think many people would have had a different response.
Sure. Well, let's move on to, you had mentioned at the very beginning you were in Texas, and I know for the last couple of shows we have talked about the southern border as well. I think you even did one of your shows, you did it live from Texas, if I recall. So what was this trip about, and what were your takeaways?
I just go back to every state is a border state at this point. What's happening down in Texas right now is affecting all the entire country, because we're seeing illegal immigrants dispersing all over the United States. I see it. Every place that I've went so far now, if you remember, Ben, I was down there in April with Representative Jim Jordan, went to Panama the end of May, saw it happening down there, and then saw it once again when I went last week to the Texas border. You see motor coaches at every one of those places, and they are just pumping the immigrants up through the system, whether it's Panama or on our southern border. And then they get on airplanes in McAllen, Texas. And I saw it once again when I left McAllen, Texas last week. They're going to all these different places around the country. Once again, I saw those manila envelopes in their hands on the plane that I departed from in McAllen, Texas. It said Washington, D.C., Chicago, Philadelphia. They are going all over the country. But the reason we went down is Governor Abbott is finally, in Texas, is finally saying, we can't take this anymore. This is overrunning our hospitals and our schools. Our public services are being stretched so thin. Crime is up significantly. The amount of illicit drugs, meth, in particular methamphetamine and fentanyl, that we know all about here in northern Wisconsin, the numbers are increasing at a staggering level. And the Biden administration refuses to do anything about it. And in fact, there's a few of us in our delegation in Wisconsin. We sent a letter to Governor Evers saying, you should help out like other states are and send National Guard under your control down to help Governor Abbott. And that's something, as Romaine knows, the states can do.
And I think that's a long shot. I mean, if he waits till after rioters sack basically the state capital before sending help, he's certainly not going to send them to the southern border. like we've seen in Madison.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask Tom and actually probably you too, Romaine, is this likely to happen? Or did you get a response from Governor Evers, first of all?
We've not gotten a response.
Do you anticipate a response? Or is this one of those, whatever?
I don't expect a response.
Oh.
I mean, I think Romaine can comment on this. He's hitting the nail on the head with his comments.
Romaine?
And it's unfortunate too. I mean, as a conservative or as a liberal, we all have different ideas of what role does the federal government play. And as a conservative, we believe it's not supposed to be this benevolent entity that does everything for us, but one of its core functions should be basic protection of the country and of its citizens. That's across the board, regardless of your political the spectrum. Everyone believes that. And just to watch them utterly fail at one of their basic obligations, I think just turns a lot of people off left and right. I mean, we want everyone that comes across to be treated with dignity. We don't want to see people in cages or mistreated or things like that. But, if you don't have a border, you don't have a country. And I don't understand why that has to be political. And I think that just frustrates a lot of people. We know there's a problem and they're just, no one wants to fix it. And this has been going on for years and it's only gotten worse.
Yeah, it's been going on for decades, and it's a national security issue. I mean, that's what we saw. In fact, just last week, the foreign minister for Panama came out and said that we are deeply concerned about people on the terrorist watch list that are infiltrating into these massive numbers of illegal immigrants. It's very easy to melt into, the thousands and thousands of people that are making the migration at this point up from South America through the pipeline that starts in Panama up to Texas. And they're sounding the warning bells at this point in Panama that you better watch out. And we've already seen that Border Patrol interdicted 2 Yemenis a couple months ago that are on the terrorism watch list. And one of them was really a dangerous guy, according to our intelligence reports. And that kind of stuff is happening. It is jeopardizing our national security. And to Romaine's point, that's one of the fundamental roles of the federal government. Now, Governor Abbott in Texas is being forced to deal with this because it is overrunning his state and on their way to the rest of the country. And I don't blame him. He should be taking action.
Well, Romaine had mentioned that it's political, or a significant portion is likely to be. And I think we can all agree that it's a national issue, not a political issue, but it must be. Or tell me why this isn't being addressed. And I think it seems like every time you're on and we talk about this, I keep asking, so why isn't this getting fixed? Why aren't we doing this?
Because they believe in open borders. The Biden administration, the people that are in control, Secretary Mayorkas and others, they believe in open borders. They believe anybody should be able to come in here anytime that they want to. I mean, it is as simple as that.
Okay.
Why they're doing this.
So it's your opinion that the powers that be do not see this as a problem?
No, they do not see this as a problem. And in fact, they're willing to put hundreds of millions of dollars of American taxpayer money towards this. I mean, we're housing people that are coming across the border in effort to resettle them. I mean, I've posed a question. I've brought this up a couple times, Ben, that I've been on these planes out of McAllen, Texas, and I see all these migrants that are on there. They've got their manila envelopes with them, where they're going. I've asked the federal government, who is paying for those plane tickets? I think we know the answer. I would like to confirm it, though.
Fantastic.
And imagine if the geography was switched, right? If northern Wisconsin and northern Minnesota was dealing with this issue. If it was a Canadian border issue, right? I cannot imagine, as a former state legislature, having to divert resources, state resources, from our schools, from our hospitals, from infrastructure, to try and secure a border that shouldn't be our problem because it's a national issue. So, I mean, it's awesome that Governor Abbott is stepping up to do that for all of us. But I can't imagine how upset he has to be that he's going to be spending hundreds of millions of dollars on a job the federal government is supposed to be doing. That's got to be beyond frustrating.
It's a very good point. They allocated another $1 billion, billion with a B, towards border control here So, yeah, we could talk about this
Yeah,
all day.
all day. Yeah, no kidding.
It continues to be completely out of control. It's chaotic down there. The same thing that I saw in April is still happening down there. I was down there at midnight once again when we arrived in Texas last week. I went down to confirm to see if the same thing's happening with people coming across the Rio Grande, giving themselves up to the Border Patrol, and then being bussed out to be processed to be sent to the rest of the United States. The same thing is still happening. And in fact, the numbers are even increasing at this point. Out of control, completely.
All right.
The Biden administration refuses to do anything about this. And I just want to close with this on this issue. 3 things happened on January 20th by the Biden administration. They stopped stay in Mexico, they stopped construction of the border wall, and they initiated catch and release. Those 3 things are what has led to this unprecedented illegal migration that's been happening in this country. And they are coming from all over the world. 140 countries have now been identified as having people come across our border. This is not about just Central America and Mexico.
Oh yeah, we could talk about that all day, and it's something that I think everyone should have a strong opinion. You know, there's some things that everyone has an opinion on, or maybe not that strong. There are some topics that everyone has a very strong opinion on. I don't understand why that isn't one of those things that you should have a very strong opinion on, and educate yourself on that.
And this is not just, people would say, "Oh, you're just playing a partisan game here, Congressman Tiffany." That's not the case. Representative Henry Cuellar, a prominent Democrat who represents one of the border districts down in Texas, he said to Vice President Harris, if you're coming to Texas just for a photo op or to check the box, don't do that. You need to come and see what we're really dealing with. What did she do? She did a photo op.
All right, let's move on. I want to get to big tech. I know there's a lot of things kind of going on over there, and I also want to get your opinion on Wisconsin, the budget, and now because you have a lot of insight and experience in your role as on the Joint Finance Committee, and I think that's when you and I first started talking or kind of met. That was several years ago. So obviously the budget right now is in Evers' hands, so I want your opinion on that. But first, I just want to touch on this, is the Haitian president was assassinated. Is this something that even United States, and maybe more specifically the 7th Congressional District, we should be paying attention to? If so, why? I mean, obviously it's a terrible situation. However, does it really impact us?
So Haiti has been a lawless country for a long time. And I'd also say, though, that we can't fix all of the world's problems. And that's part of the problem with Haiti at this point. But when I was in Panama, that's one of the migrant categories that we saw was many Haitians as well. We saw a lot of Venezuelans, people from South America, saw people from Africa, even Europe and Bangladesh in Asia. So we saw people from all over the world, but there were a lot of Haitians. And I think this highlights how destabilized Haiti is. And a lot of people are just looking at getting out of that country. I mean, it is not in good shape, and it has not been for a long time.
Oh. All right, so let's get to some big tech antitrust hearings. Tell us where we are on those.
Yeah, so we had hearings a couple of weeks ago in Judiciary. For regular listeners of the Dryden Show, they know that I sit on the Judiciary Committee. And so we held hearings in regards to big tech companies as far as possibly breaking them up, reining them in, stuff like that. And I would just say this. I thought we had really good hearings in regards to this. And there's some agreement in terms of both Republicans and Democrats. But there's 2 things that I think are preeminent in my mind that need to be dealt with. One is the censorship. They need to stop censoring people. You see it with with COVID-19. They're censoring very prominent people who are very authoritative in the healthcare field, and they're censoring them at this point. And of course, you have a former president who's being censored at this point. And the second thing that I think is important, and I don't know how we get to it, but I see small media outlets, I think about local newspapers and others, they don't get compensated by the big tech companies. The big tech companies monetize that information that goes out. In other words, they make the money from it. And you see your small outlets, your local newspapers, a DrydenWire, somebody like that does some actual reporting. They don't get compensated for that. I think that's the other area of great concern for me is the compensation for information they put out on their sites, and the second thing is the censorship.
So on the censorship thing, I would have no problem if they censored like a whole bunch of the people that comment on our stuff. That'd be great. Or, the people that send hate mail. And by the way, this is my favorite show because I get more hate mail after doing a show with you than I do on any other show. And hopefully today, Romaine will get some hate mail too. I mean, put it this way, we got Republicans on here. I mean, if you're a Republican, you're probably loving the show. And if you're a Democrat, just turn it off and just start typing your hate mail now because apparently that makes you feel better. But when it comes to that compensation part, that part I don't really understand.
Well, so somebody will put a link in a social media post, and it will highlight an article that appeared in perhaps the local newspaper or something like that. They found a link to be able to do that. And that local paper is not being compensated for them using that information, that reporting that was done. They're not paying that local newspaper for using their content.
Sure.
Now, they'll make arguments that perhaps, hey, we're helping spread the word. That may help the local newspaper and all the rest. I just don't think that happens. And I do think that they should compensate in some way. In fact, Australia, I think, passed a law along those lines, and Facebook went after them hard. And of course, they're so big and they have such a legion of attorneys that it's really tough to fight back against them. And so I just think those are two really big issues in regards to the tech companies. But they got a big bullseye in the back of them. I'm seeing article after article over the last few weeks where people are coming after them, including state attorneys general.
And I thought I saw something yesterday, maybe it was the day before. I think I put it up on a U.S. World Headline Links. It was like a $10 billion huge contract. They're no longer being a part of with big tech. I think it was Google and something else. I probably should have written that down. Do you recall anything or seeing anything about that, Tom?
As the United States military, they went and pulled out of a contract, a $10 million contract with, was it 10 million or 10 billion?
I thought it was billion, but I can't remember.
Anyhow, with Microsoft. And so they were, some in the military were saying that they did not think that there was an open enough process. And so they pulled the contract back, and that's going to be rebid. That's what happened there.
Tom, do you know, is there any discussion on privacy, especially with these big companies? I know before you made the jump out to D.C. And before I left, Representative Zimmerman was working on bills, I know, for the Wisconsin legislature on really trying to dig deep in what data should be private, and it's your ownership, right? So the things you click on, all of that, all of that's being saved. These companies know what we spend our time on, what we spend our money with, what our interests are, and that's not always bad. They can cater to our lives, but at the same time, at what point is that data your personal data? And I just didn't know, are there any discussions going on at a national level where states don't have to individually try and address this for their consumers or citizens?
Yeah, there's certainly discussion that's going on in regards to that. I know as someone who's a strong civil libertarian, I believe the tech companies need to do a better job of not violating people's privacy rights. And, what they'll say to you is that, well, if you checked the box when you signed up to use our service, and in there it says we can use your data. How many people read the 5 pages of fine print? I think there needs to be a more explicit way in which they say to the consumer that we're going to use your data, or we may use your private information. I think that needs to be more explicit, Romaine, and we have talked about that.
Or like bullet pointed a little bit. So I don't download apps like games or anything on my phone, but I think we were heading down somewhere and my wife was driving and we're going on a trip. So I'm like, I'll download something. I think it was like Jeopardy or Wheel of Fortune. I don't know, something like that. Just a dumb little free game, but in-app purchases, which fine, I don't care. So I download it, and first thing it comes up was just a bullet point By hitting allow, you give us the ability to access all of your photos on your phone, all of the contacts in your contact list, and a couple other things. I'm looking, going, no. So I hit no, but it wouldn't let me download. I'm like, what? So I started just downloading a whole bunch of them to see, and almost all of them want that information. It's why in the world would you want that? Oh, got it. Oh, I get it. So that's just really weird. You can't even play a game without giving it access to everything on your phone. How bizarre.
Yep. Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, it's $1 billion industry. I mean, a lot of it's harmless, marketing, companies tailoring to what your preferences are. It's no different than when you having a conversation about buying a car and you go on Facebook and all of a sudden there's car ads all over your Facebook. Yeah, right. There's not always anything nefarious going on or wrong with it, but at some point that data and that information, it's proprietary, it's yours. And you have companies making billions of dollars when they glean that off of you without your permission. And I think that at some point that's got to be addressed, especially as we move further and further down the road of technological advances.
Yeah. Tom, do you have high hopes here on these hearings? Are you having more hearings on the big tech antitrust topic?
We're probably going to vote some stuff out of committee, or we have voted some stuff out of committee at this point. It'll go to the full floor of the House, and I think the Senate has a companion bill or a bill that deals with this type of stuff. And I think you'll probably see it go to conference committee. I'm hoping some good stuff comes out of it, and that there is some agreement that is struck to deal with a few of these things. My greatest concern, and I expressed this in committee, is that are we going to give the federal government enormous new powers in the effort to rein in the big tech companies? And which is worse? Because that's the question that kept going through my mind. By reining in the big tech companies and turning that power over to the federal government, do we actually make things worse? Because to me, giving the federal government more power, I hesitate to do that every single day I'm out in Washington.
Yeah, and sometimes the devil you know is better than the devil you don't, right? So yeah, that must be kind of a balance there. So looking forward. Sorry.
There's some tough questions to be answered in regards to that.
Well, I'm looking forward to the update next month when you come on. I want to kind of switch gears here and get to the Wisconsin budget. And again, that's not your wheelhouse anymore in terms of Wisconsin down in Madison, but obviously you were on the Joint Finance Committee. That's been wrapped up, or the budget aspect of it is now sitting on Evers' desk. I want to get into what you think he'll do, but first, have you had a chance to at least kind of skim or see a little bit of what that budget proposal was? And if so, do you think it was a good one?
Yeah, I'll just briefly comment. Sure. I thought the Joint Finance Committee did a terrific job. I had a chance to talk to a couple of my former colleagues, and I thought they put together a very good budget. Huge tax cut that's in there, I think the biggest in history, which is really a terrific thing. But I think they also made sure that spending did not get out of control. There's so much money coming in from the federal government at this point to the states that it's easy just to go on this spending binge. And the legislature did a good job of reining that in. And I would just say two things. I think Governor Evers is going to sign the budget bill. I think he has a better chance of being reelected by signing the this bill that came from the legislature. I don't know what Romaine thinks, but I think he'll sign it, and I think he's better served, and the people of Wisconsin are better served by him signing the bill.
That's interesting. I'll place a bet on that one. But you have more, political understanding of how these things work. That's why I like talking to Adam Jarkow. It's not just his opinion. He likes to look at it from a political side, and he shares things that I'm like, oh, how did I not think of that? So, Romaine, actually, since you were in the assembly, what did you think of the budget that was proposed? And what do you think Evers is going to do?
Yeah, I think it would be foolish for him not to sign it. I think he's already pandered to his base by introducing a budget that spends billions more, that taxes billions more, and then he can go home and check the box and say, look, I tried. It's those darn Republicans again. They don't let me get anything done. But I also signed the largest tax cut in state history, right? So it's a win-win. So I hate that because people in the legislature do it too. they'll vote against something, and then they talk about all the good things in it when they go back to the district. Well, it's like you don't get credit for something you didn't vote for. And on the flip side, it'll be the same thing which we've seen. This is the first time in a decade that a number of Democrats actually broke with the party and voted for a Republican bill. And why is that?
Yeah,
because,
that's great.
again,
I'm sorry, real quick. I even saw, and I was going to ask Janet Buell when she comes on in a few weeks. She had voted for it, and then, I mean, her press release, then it wasn't like really glowing, remarks about it, but she had signed it. I'm like, well, that's interesting.
Right.
So I just wanted to ask her about it. So I'd seen she and several others, as you were just mentioning, Democrats sign it, that I was really surprised that they would sign that. And again, I think we've talked to some others before too. It's 100% political. Oh, sure.
If you send out a press release crapping on something you voted for, it's 100% political.
Sure.
And it's unfortunate. I think overall, it's a good budget. And if you step back, when Walker was running for re-election, and Governor Evers, or at the time was Superintendent of Public Instruction, Secretary Evers came out with a budget that invested like $635 million more into schools. That's what he was requesting from the legislature. So it was re-election time. Governor Walker did reintroduce a new budget, and it gave schools the exact amount Secretary Evers at the time wanted. And the same thing we hear all the time, it's never enough. So it's just, I think it's frustrating at times because it doesn't matter what you do. If one party does it, the other side is going to oppose it regardless. I think we saw some of this, but because there was such a good budget put together with like well balance of tax cuts, slowing the growth of government, still invest in areas that we all care about, it's going to be a hard time for the governor to walk away from that.
Well, one quick follow-up question is for both of you. If you think that he's going to sign it, why is he taking so long?
They're doing the vetoes, the line item vetoes.
Okay, so you think he's going to do some line item vetoes?
Without a doubt.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just you were saying, yep, just gonna sign it. Yep, looks good.
No,
I think he's going to sign it with vetoes.
Okay, all right. I must have missed that part. Yeah, that was more
so
likely.
if you look, and I think Tom has mentioned this on the show when he was in the legislature, that the Wisconsin governor has one of the most powerful veto pens in the country because it's not just up or down. He can line item things. He can strike certain words. And obviously we can test those things in court on can you change the meaning of something versus just spending. So it'll be interesting what he plans to do, but he's definitely finding a way to figure out how to slash things out of there that he disagrees with.
Sure. Tom, I think I saw you were up in, I follow you on Twitter, which that's a weird place. But I saw you were in our area, I think, what is today? I think yesterday?
Yeah, I was up in Ashland yesterday.
Ashland, okay.
Visited the Tech College hospital, local hospital that really does a good job. I was impressed with their Ashland's local hospital. They own both Ashland and Hayward hospitals. And stopped at Breading Manufacturing also. And man, they are one of the best manufacturing companies you'll find in all of Wisconsin, located right up in Ashland.
What do they manufacture? Or is that a dumb question? Like, I don't know anything about manufacturing places.
So they're like in paper converting equipment that makes things like everything from roll towels, napkins, all kinds of stuff like that. They make the equipment that produces those items.
Nice. And what do you have coming up this week?
They have 100 engineers that work in their business.
Was it?
100.
You're saying it in a way that I feel like that's a lot. I don't.
500 employees, 100 engineers. It's incredible.
Oh wow, that is.
Yeah, that's a terrific company.
Where is that located, Tom?
Ashland.
They're up in Ashland.
In Ashland.
Yeah.
So I mean, think of how important that manufacturer is for northern Wisconsin. And when you talk about even the state budget with policy, so years ago we exempted manufacturers from having to pay a corporate tax in Wisconsin so they can stay competitive and remain in Ashland and not move somewhere else, right? And this budget, if the Republicans didn't change it, was going to eliminate that. And so at a time where we have record amounts of money coming in, why would you ask for more from your small manufacturers that are the lifeblood in communities like Ashland, right? So it just shows that the budget's not only a fiscal document, there's a lot of items in there that we should all be paying attention to all the time.
I'm looking forward to it. So Tom, you obviously you'll be back on in a month. I don't even know where are you in DC? I can't remember. No, probably not if you have the hat on.
Yeah. So I got another week after this week here at home. We're doing lots of visits with to places like Ashland. Saturday, I want to issue an apology to the people of Spooner. I am not going to be able to join you for the Spooner Rodeo Parade. I wanted to do that so badly, but we have Academy Day. That's where young people come in. We get to, as a congressional representative, be able to help people place people in our service academies, which I think is really a big deal. And we're having an Academy Day Saturday where we can help young people that want to get more information about going to one of the service academies. And that's happening Saturday morning. You can just contact my office if you want more information in regards to that. I think we had 5 or 6 young people that were placed in the service academies from the 7th Congressional District last year. And there is no greater pleasure I have representing the people of northern and western Wisconsin than making that call to those young people and saying, you get to go to West Point, you get to go to the Air Force Academy, wherever it may be. That is really a terrific thing.
Well, I was just going to ask you, so there's one question, it's for both of you, but it's one for each of you. I was going to ask, now that you have been doing this for, how long have you been there now? A year? Oh, a little over a year now, right?
14 months.
Yep. So far, what has been your favorite part? And I'm not going to ask you what's your least favorite unless you want to say that. But so far, what's your favorite one?
Oh, it's always going out and meeting with people. In particular, I really like to go to schools. I like to go talk to young people. I used to do that before I was ever in the legislature, going and read to my kids, my daughter's classes in the classroom when they were young kids. And I just really enjoy getting into the classroom. That's one of the most favorite things to do. But I got to tell you, calling these kids these young people, when young men and women, when they get the appointment to one of the service academies, you can just hear it in their voices, how honored they are to be able to represent their country. And we can't thank them enough for their service.
That's awesome.
And Romaine, what is the one thing that you miss the most about being a legislator?
Oh, not much. No, I'm kidding. there's quite a bit. I do miss being in the thick of it, being able to take that vote, things like that for sure. But I got to tell you, I enjoy being home. I've got a cute little boy. He turns 4 months tomorrow. Thank God he looks like his mom more and more each day, and
sure,
it's going pretty good. So
awesome, Tom. Final words.
Hey, I hope everybody's enjoying summer. Summer does not last long enough here in northern Wisconsin. Get out, enjoy it, and it is so great to see so many people from around the country, especially the Midwest, coming to northern Wisconsin and spending their hard-earned money. There's no better place to do it.
Welcome to Northwest Wisconsin. Bring money.
Yeah.
Love it. All right, Romaine, thanks so much for jumping on. That was it was great. It was fun. Hope you enjoyed it. Tom, as always, thank you.
Hey, we'll talk soon.
You got it. Special thank you to our guest today, 7th Congressional District Representative Tom Tiffany, and thank you to co-host, former 75th Assembly District Representative Romaine Quinn, and of course, thank all of you for watching. I'm Ben Dryden. Until next time, stay safe, stay positive, and as always, have a blessed day.